Andrea. Nice to meet you. My name is Marco Foglia. I'm an animation supervisor here at Agora. I've been an animator for the last 25 years. I've animated on a lot of stuff, mostly VFX, but I've done games and TVs, commercials, cartoons. I've been supervising the last 10 years of my career, roughly. So I've seen a lot of stuff, and it was my pleasure to look at your entry for this AnimChallenge. I thought it was really great. You have a really cute little scenario, funny little idea. And I think you did a really great job. I do remember the cat rig being a little simple. And I think that you stretched this rig to its limits. You did a lot of really nice stuff with it. I also loved your direction and everything that you chose. I kind of wanted to look at it with you and maybe give you a couple of ideas on it. I feel like one of the restrictions was that maybe you're limited to 15 seconds. And so a couple of beats could have been played out a little bit more in an ideal world. But with the restrictions you did have, I think you did an amazing job. And then a couple of anim notes here and there. But I think overall, for the style you chose and for the feeling that you got out of the cat, I think it was really great, as well as the Grim Reaper. That was all working pretty well. So let me switch over to this camera here so we can see it together. I'm just going to play through one more time for me. I love the last shot. I love the way he looks at the cat, and he just kind of like just goes to sleep, which is great. I guess a couple of high-level things before I get into sort of the smaller anim bits, maybe. I feel like the beat at the end... Let me mute this so that you can hear me. I feel like the beat at the end could have maybe been a little stronger. I feel like you were really fighting the time. I think you kept this to just about 14 seconds, and it was right under 15 seconds, so I know you couldn't pass that. But the part for me that I thought could use a little bit more love was this little bit right here. I feel like there could have been more of a moment for surprise on the cat. Like he just would have gotten, he didn't know what was going on, he or she. And as the Grim Reaper's approaching them, they're really scared and they don't know if they're going to die. And then he kind of gets dropped. And I feel like it needed a moment of the cat sort of pauses in a bit of an afraid moment and then has that thought change and kind of realizes, what the heck? I'm not dead. And then it would cut, she would still look up. I say she, cats are always she in my brain. And kind of looks up, and then this last shot is exactly as is. So what I thought could have been a little stronger was right here. The cat's just kind of like scared, and maybe the ears are down, and then has a moment of realization first, like to itself, and then looks up. That could have been a little bit stronger, but again, you were fighting the time. I feel the moment you have now is working. There's still this sort of sense of surprise. I just think it could have been stronger. And if you're fighting the time, one idea would be to still keep it under 15 seconds, but maybe you don't need this shot as is. You maybe could just have this shot here, and then in that shot he picks him up and starts to lift him, and then it could cut to this right here. But a sort of static frame where we're already down here and the cat gets dropped in from off frame. That could have been an idea, just to buy you the time to give you some of the acting beats and still keep it under 15 seconds. If you ever, in your wildest dreams, want to revisit this, which I wouldn't, I think you did a really great piece and it's something to move on from, then you could just extend the shot and just give more beats in that moment and keep everything as is. I thought that was the first one. A couple of other little kind of more high-level ideas. I love this cut. I think it's working really well. I love, too, that some people are very precious with continuity and making sure the pose is exactly the same, when in real life or live action, that doesn't really happen. There's sort of this persistence of you accept something if it's roughly in the right place, as long as it doesn't pop in the edit. And so you have a lot of these little cheats in here, whether you realize it or not. I think you did, I hope. So, like, for example, here, she gets dropped from a top view right next to the coffin and just turns her head a little bit to screen left. But then when it cuts, you're in a completely different orientation. And to me, that doesn't matter at all. I think it's totally great. and I'm glad you didn't kind of complicate your life. You tried to add a little bit of a head motion here for the continuity of continuity of motion, so that it continued. But I thought that was a great choice. And you did similar things here and there. The cat sort of turns. Technically, it should be turning just over its shoulder, but here it looks like it is also shifted. And I love that kind of cheating. I think it just tells the story. You don't need to overcomplicate your life. I love all the choices you made there. I love the spray, especially the facial expressions. This cat, at least when I looked at the rig, I don't remember you being able to really shape the eyes. If you did, it could have been something I missed. But the amount of expression you got out of just like 4 controls, basically, I think is really great. Especially here with the little kind of the hissing. It's really great. Oh, but I did want to add, I thought this shot could have been, so right here, when she's looking at him, I think it's clear. It might have been something you might want to frame a little bit wider just to get a better sense of this action down here, but not a huge deal. I thought this was a moment. Now, I don't know a lot about lighting, and I barely have ever had to do any of it in my life. So you have this whole rendered scene or whatever way you're accomplishing this really nicely, but I think it would have been stronger. I think it was asking for a shadow growing here. You kind of have her in the shadow the whole time, but to have that shadow, it just looks like that kind of shot growing over her face. I thought that would have been a cool little addition too. This is all great. I think to make it a little more menacing, again, I feel like you were, I want to give you suggestions and ideas just looking at this in hindsight, but I know that you were struggling with time and you're just trying to get an edit that fit into time and told the story well. So in every way, I think you accomplished this. This is just like tweaks. I feel it could have been a little menacing if you let the hand just live a little longer in the shot and it got bigger in frame. So you got the shot a little longer and at least it started to really obscure the frame by the end. I think that could look a little bit scarier. And then that's kind of it, outside of mentioning possibly extending this shot so it pulls them out, killing this one, and then showing more here so you can get a little bit more of an acting moment out of the cat. That would be all that I would say as far as high level stuff. I think it's all looking really great. I would now comment, I think, on what's there and things I might improve, and honestly not a lot. Like, I think it's looking really nice, and I don't think I would ever want to change what you've done so much, like hugely. Just little tweaks maybe. So things to think about. Let's start at the beginning. So one thing I'm not 100% familiar with this rig is if it has such a short neck. This pose first struck out to me a little bit, like it could have been a bit stronger. So I don't know. It looks like in all the shots it stays pretty consistent, this design. I took a quick look at what it looked like on the website. And I see in other shots here, you get to see a little bit of separation. So I think that's just his design. But the fact that his neck is so short in a sitting, and when you see him full screen, I feel bothered me a bit, but it could just be the design of the cat, not something you could change. But what I would try to find, and I'm pretty sure you could do with the rig, is maybe a little bit more roundness here. I feel like this pose, cats, like the stereotypical cat sitting pose is like a snowman there. Big, and then you got the head. So like, I'm drawing this terribly, but definitely like this rounder kind of shape to rest the whole body on, I think would have been a little bit nicer here if possible. And I feel like the rig might have had that ability, but that'd be the only tweak. I think everything else here is super nice. The licking is looking cool. The reaction is looking cool. Little things that could add a little bit. I think it's actually pretty nice here. This is all great. Like I said, besides framing his action a little bit clearer, I still think it sells it the way it is. He looks like he is... It looks like he's about to attack her. Like you're not quite sure what's about to happen. I think this shot is looking pretty cool, even from a mechanic standpoint. You have like your foot splays and everything. You have a lot of stuff in here that's looking pretty good. Very likely, you're probably overlapping the action a little bit too much. I'm not certain if you used ref for this. But my gut tells me that you would probably not have this right here, where both the back legs are moving and the front leg hasn't planted. That means she's really holding herself up with just one leg. And although totally possible, I kind of feel like it'd be a little bit more broken up than that. And maybe that one of the back legs can start, then the second front leg has to land, and then another back leg can start. Again, without ref, and I use ref all the time just to refresh my memory, so I'm not 100% certain about that. When I first watched this, it felt a tiny bit floaty. It felt a little bit like not enough weight transfer was happening to kind of get her back. But when you play it, though, it works really well. And it's a little bit of a stylistic choice. I don't think it's super bad, but it's something that you could tweak a little bit. I love her face. I love all that action. This one I think is working pretty well. It's got the kind of ideas I was thinking about. You have sort of a bit of an offset between these two transverse legs that are sort of moving back, and then you have these two guys moving at the same time in register, but with a bit of an offset. I feel like that's working pretty well. Again, depending on how soft or cute you're trying to make this cat, I feel like you have a really nice eases, and you should have a nice feeling to her. But one small tweak, just to break it up a little bit. I feel like on every step, especially the back legs, you're missing a little bit of an up and down. It could have lifted a bit more and then dropped as this leg is dropping here. I think that could have helped a little bit, just to get a little bit of more urgency too. She's stepping back as quick as she can. When cats are scared, they're not generally this soft. They're very tense and spastic if you watch the ref of them. So although, like I said, you're trying to keep her looking really appealing and I think pretty cute, maybe a little bit more tenseness in those up and downs and like hits and stuff like that, just to make her look a little more scared. It could apply here, but again, when I first watched this, except for a little bit of floatiness, I thought that this was working pretty well. But again, every little step, the chest could have gone up here, and then there could have been a little bit of a down there. Oh, there is a little bit, but sort of little impacts, I think. It really depends on the style. But even with this, you could add a little bit more of that. But if not, it's looking really nice. I think another little bit way to break stuff up is the last little bit of scared recoil she does here. It's sort of the whole edge is moving at the same time. It might have been more fun to maybe break it up, so maybe the front drops first and the back drops second. Oh, I realize I'm obscuring myself a little bit, so let me just go back to this. You don't have to see me. But these are little touches. These are not huge deals. I don't think any of these is really going to break or make your shot. It's just more to kind of plus it a little bit. If you were to ever keep the shot as is, I get that she's scared. She kind of closes her eyes before getting picked up. But something about the speed at which she gets picked up and just the intensity of it, something just tells me I think I would have wanted to catch her eyes again. She could have closed them, but maybe through here she could have like had a scared expression looking up. When I first watched the shot, I just felt like I wanted to see her face, and I just didn't. Because it's a black cat and you have all this dark lighting, it's really tough to get a read on her. But I feel like that moment we didn't want to lose the character. This was more of a storytelling shot just to show that it's getting lifted up. But I think we could have had the eyes in there. And mechanically, I didn't really notice much. It's a little soft, but it's kind of the feeling you're going for. This is looking really great, the drop in. I do feel, though, that the way she gathers up, right here, where she's starting to get all her limbs under her, I think that also needed more breakup, more overlap. The cat would step before this moved, then that would step, then this would step, or those two would step a little bit closer. But right now, there's a moment here where they're all kind of moving at the same time through here, with just this leg broken up, where it takes a little bit longer to get into place. And I feel like that's the only major thing. I think it could have been a little bit more separated, those actions, not overlapping as much. Next, back here, and this shot I just love. I love the way he does it. I love the way he looks at her. He just looks really kind of ticked off to me. I don't know why. Something with absolutely no expression that basically looks like it's smiling. But something about this attitude just looks like I think it's the way he looks at her. Just looks at her and he kind of grabs it. You could have pushed that a little bit more. With a little more, again, I don't know your intention. So this is, take it with a grain of salt. This is maybe personal taste. But I feel like he could have grabbed it a little bit stronger. Actually, I should show myself. It could have been a little bit more like, you have a good sharp look at her, but then a grab with a little bit more recoil and impact, just to show that he's a little angry or a little ticked off. So and then a little bit of a harder slam. But the slam is pretty good. But definitely a bounce at the end. Boom. Like it sort of eases, but instead of like a hit, just to kind of amp it up a little bit. If not, it looks great. And then the cat could have even, or her reaction's great actually. It's great. She does exactly what I think she should. But she could have been a little bit more, maybe like tighter and then a bit of recoil. I guess the thing that's missing for me when I look at this kind of stuff is if you're, and again, I'm not sure your intention, but if you're trying to show that the character's upset, you move it in a more uncontrolled way and at the same time tight. So when you do grab stuff, there has to be overshoot and settle. Pull down, overshoot and settle. If you're scared, you kind of crouch down, but then you settle back up a little bit. I feel like that sort of extra layer of energy is missing a little bit in the shot. But the bones are all there, and the idea is all there. And that would also be a great contrast to the beginning. She's nice and calm and relaxed, and then she notices something, and then the tension builds up, and then it gets released here, and then we get a payoff with something that's funnier. Overall, though, it's really great. I think you did a great job, and I can see why you won. So I hope this is valuable to you. I hope it's great, but great job, and keep it up.